What's a quote that permanently changed the way you look at things? Use what talents you possess. The woods will be very silent if no birds sang there except those that sang best. Henry Van Dyke. There's a Buddhist quote, "Don't believe everything you think." Very much related to mindfulness and the idea that you are not what you think. Sometimes we have bad thoughts that we only think because we physically feel bad. That doesn't make us bad. Just observe and let the thoughts pass. Another good one from Buddhism: before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? People don't think about you as much as you imagine they do. Similarly, I've heard this as, don't worry about what others think of you because in most cases they don't. It's easy to fool someone. It's hard to convince them that they've been fooled. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Carl Sagan. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. John Shedd. The first draft is just you telling yourself the story. Terry Pratchett. I'm not sure why this quote struck me so hard, but it completely changed the way I approach writing. Just get your ideas down in run-on sentences and asides to yourself and loads of parts you haven't figured out yet. It took me more than 30 years to realize that a first draft isn't just a rough version of the final draft. It's a map for yourself, and no one else. We're all critics. We're all so good at recognizing what's shitty about something. But then we're also bad at making something. So just make something bad and then criticize it until it's good. Dan Harmon. My favorite Terry Pratchett quote is, "Build a man a fire, and he'll be warm for a day. Set a man on fire, and he'll be warm for the rest of his life." Resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. When seeking revenge, dig 2 graves. Confucius. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it is a quiet voice at the end of the day saying, "I will try again tomorrow." Mary Ann Radmacher. I came across this a long time ago, at a point in life that I really needed this lesson. It's okay if I feel sad and resigned, if my depression beat me for today and I wasn't able to function. I didn't fail, I'm not weak, I will try again tomorrow. Dear Abby's response to a writer thinking of going back to school but worried that she will be 40 by the time she got her degree. How old will you be in 4 years if you don't get your degree? You are going to be 40 anyway with or without your degree. It reminded me that letting age stop me from my plans was just silly. Also, working at a community college and seeing so many people going back to school in their 30s, 40s, 50s and thriving, the quote really spoke to me. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. C. S. Lewis. The pain I feel now is the happiness I had before. That's the deal. C.S. Lewis. You might be the sweetest peach on the tree, but some people just don't like peaches. This helped me get over my lifelong desire to be liked by everyone, and allowed me to focus on becoming someone I actually liked. There's not a lot of things worth caring about. Told to me by a close friend, and it really helped me get over my insecurities and self-consciousness. Think of things this way. After you leave school, there will be 2 types of people in your life: your friends, family and strangers you will never see again. You don't need to worry about being insecure and self-conscious with the first group because they love, like you, and so it really doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about being insecure and self-conscious with the second group because you're never going to see them again, so it really doesn't matter. Socializing is just like any skill. You need to practice before you're good at it. My mum, comforting me when I was struggling to make friends. Edit. Thanks for the awards. I assure you, next time I see my mum I'll tell her about your compliments. Graveyards are full of irreplaceable people. That quote helped me stop going down the path of working myself to death because my job needs me. That mountain you've been carrying, you were only supposed to climb, Really helped me overcome a lot of traumatic experiences and difficult chapters in my life. I hope it helped someone else out there. The axe forgets, the tree remembers. Zimbabwean proverb. People don't forget how they were treated. That's why it's so important to be kind. Edited to add, I honestly did not expect this to blow up. Thanks while. I saw this one time under a post about parenting and it stuck with me. As a mother of 2 stubborn toddlers, some days are rough and filled with thin patience and frustration. I use this quote to remind myself that how I am with them will be what helps to shape them. My husband and I set the example for them, and both of us had crappy childhoods. I don't want them traumatized like I was as a child. I want them to be molded with love, not negativity. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not weakness. That is life. Captain Jean-Luc Picard. You can't blame a blind person for being blind. Or you just don't let them drive your car. We have to realize a lot of stuff in life is beyond our control. We have to learn to live with it. The good and the bad. Honey, I hope it's the worst thing that ever happens to you. From my dad when I was complaining about something. He probably didn't intend for it to be deep or anything, but it puts things in perspective. I think of it all the time. Sometimes I have to tell myself, if that's the worst thing that happens to me all day, it will be a pretty good day. I visited Pearl Harbor this week, and the one that struck me was, there were many acts of heroism that day, not all of them recorded. It reminds me that even when nobody is watching, it's still important to put forward your best. Just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean you gained me as an enemy. I still want to see you eat, just not at my table. I've been dealing with a few fizzled relationships lately, and this is so on point. The last thing I wish for is for them to be fucked over. At the same time, I don't need to see your face. Woman shrugging. And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. John Steinbeck, East of Eden. Such a beautifully written novel. The dedication is always something I remember. Well, here's your box. Nearly everything I have is in it, and it is not full. Pain and excitement are in it. And feeling good or bad, and evil thoughts and good thoughts, the pleasure of design and some despair, and the indescribable joy of creation. And on top of these are all the gratitude and love I have for you. And still the box is not full. John. I've had a lot of worries in my life. Most of which never happened. Mark Twain. Found it on a workbook for anxiety disorders. My therapist once told me that living in the future is anxiety. Living in the past is depression. Only good way is to live in the present moment. Good luck. Ha. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Many that live deserve death. And some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment. Your kid isn't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. The only way out is through. Long time ago I was meeting 2 women on the sidewalk, and just as we passed each other I heard this one sentence from one of them. You don't notice your progress in life because you are always raising the bar. That is so true. When you're progressing, your standards get higher and higher. Everyone is somebody else's weirdo. End of BoJack Season 2. It gets easier, every day it gets easier, but you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. Also from BoJack, when you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. I don't know the quote exactly, but I really liked. But hey, life sucks and then you die. Well, sometimes life sucks and you just keep living. You cannot convince people to love you. This is an absolute rule. No one will ever give you love because you want him or her to give it. Real love moves freely in both directions. Don't waste your time on anything else. Cheryl Strayed. You train people how to treat you, unconsciously or not. Don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. This helped a lot with my guilt and burgeoning martyr complex. Not sure the exact quote, but don't play chess with a pigeon. It'll just knock over the pieces. shit all over the board and then strut around like it won the game. In reference to arguing with unreasonable people who refuse to and/or incapable of considering viewpoints outside their own and employ logical fallacies to justify their position. Assume whoever you're listening to knows something you don't. Paraphrased, when people act crazy, they're either actually crazy, which is unlikely, or there's a good reason for their behavior that you just haven't figured out. Dr. David Burns in his book, Feeling Good Together. Excellent book about getting along with people and trying to understand them. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the awards and the discussions here. It's worth mentioning that, in my quote, crazy really refers to surprising or unreasonable behavior, not genuine mere illness, and good reason refers more to an explanation for the behavior. The point of the quote is to not write people off because you don't understand them. Worrying is a waste of your imagination. I saw it spray painted on a sidewalk somewhere. Be afraid, but do it anyway. Carrie Fisher. Don't let a wishbone grow where a backbone should be. It's no use wasting time worrying what other people think about you. No one is thinking about you, and remember to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. Been living up to those ideals recently and I feel I have just started living. When people show you who they are, believe them. Maya Angelou. There's a lot of narcissism in self-hatred. David Foster Wallace. If you are lonely when you're alone, you are in bad company. Jean-Paul Sartre. The bee doesn't waste its time trying to convince the fly that honey is better than shit. Draw a monster. Why is it a monster? I like this one. I understand there's a guy inside me who wants to lay in bed, smoke weed all day, and watch cartoons and old movies. My whole life is a series of stratagems to avoid and outwit that guy. Anthony Bourdain. Worrying only means you suffer twice. Just because it's not your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. Honesty without kindness is brutality. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Let go or be dragged. An old Zen proverb I heard at a meditation class. Really changed the way I let myself worry about things. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. Hanlon's razor. Not everyone's out to get you. There are a lot of stupid people in the world. There are two paths you can go by, but in the long run there's still time to change the road you're on. Led Zeppelin. The only thing we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. If you're trying to break a habit, don't say, "This is the last time I'm doing it," to yourself. Instead, say, "This is the first time I'm not doing it." Don't put off the important in favor of the urgent. Do you listen or just wait to speak? We're all going to die, all of us. What a circus. That alone should make us love each other, but it doesn't. We are terrorized and flattened by trivialities. We are eaten up by nothing. Charles Bukowski. I was the victim of a series of accidents. As we all are. Kurt Vonnegut, The Sirens of Titan. I used to have some pretty severe anxiety as a kid and would freak out if there was any hint of danger or risk of moderate failure. My parents started not just saying, "What's the worst that could happen?" but actually talking me through the actual worst-case scenario, and more often than not, things would still always be fine. I still run through a hypothetical worst-case scenario before making big decisions or intense situations, and it still calms me down. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Aristotle. And yes, it isn't the real quote, but elementary school-aged me internalized that thought and I have applied it to everything ever since then. From my therapist, don't know where she got it. When you're the ocean, you don't have to be afraid of the waves. I remember this when feeling overwhelmed. Today is the oldest you've ever been in your life and the youngest you'll ever be again. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Viktor Frankl. You're going to make a lot of people mad doing what's right for you. Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing. Ron Swanson. People often confuse stress with responsibility. I had a professor in college, he called it the 10/90ths rule. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Changed my life. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager. Every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals. Every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Carl Sagan, Pale Blue Dot. It's not a quote. A distant friend once told me that you have to work at friendships. It completely changed my outlook. I just thought friendships came naturally to people, wanting to hang out, gifting, etc. But since then, I recognized I needed to do my part, and my friends were doing theirs. No matter how many times I may stumble, I will rise each time a better man. The most important step a man can take is the next one. It's always the next one. Regret always comes later. My father always says this, don't know where he get this from, but a lot of good things happened in my life just because of this. Time wasted having fun was never wasted time.